What's up, everybody? It's Mikkel here, and I'm back with another Funnel Vision show. And I've got an incredible guest today. We spent quite a bit of time chatting a few days ago, maybe last week, and what this guest has been able to accomplish is absolutely unbelievable. So I'm here with Graeme Barlow. Graeme, thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me. Excited to dive in today.
Yeah, we're just going to have a fun conversation, a fun chat about your journey and everything you've gone through. So instead of me kind of doing your background, I think it's best that you kind of do your humble brag. Who are you? What have you been able to accomplish? Why should people listen to you at the end of the day?
I've been a serial entrepreneur for pretty much my entire life, over 25 years now. I've been very fortunate to build, scale, and sell multiple companies. I built a digital currency company back in 2000 that we exited in 2006. Built a game development studio at the height of the Facebook gaming craze on Flash that we built and sold after reaching over 1 million players. Ended up spending about 3.5 years in the early stage venture capital space after we'd exited the game development company, where we invested in a number of early stage SaaS companies. I co-founded a SaaS company called ProPet Software that builds business management tools for the pet industry. Started that 11 years ago. It's still running today and serving about 5 million customers a month. About 8 years ago, I was fortunate enough to join as a partner an agency called Iversoft. When I joined, the company was, I think, 4 or 5 years old. I had a team of 6 and had done some really cool stuff in the mobile development space, but hadn't really hit its stride on growth. Since then, we've taken Iversoft from kind of fairly humble beginnings to team across Canada over 50, over 45 million in lifetime sales, pushing into kind of 8-figure agency territory, and done the entire journey of 2 acquisitions, service offering that went super broad pre-pandemic, where we were the digital agency for everything, and then got super lean and mean mid-pandemic, and that kind of poured some rocket fuel on our growth. So excited to be here, excited to chat. I get to spend a lot of time scaling companies and working with cool founders.
Man, I'm really excited to dive in because you said some really cool things here. And just, first of all, I don't want to glaze over the 1 million users and all of the stuff that you've done. It's actually pretty damn incredible. But what's really kind of standing out to me is how you've been able to scale and grow. And one of the biggest things and biggest challenges that people face, especially in the agency world, but it's really every company, whether you're a software company, whether you're in general, is how do you scale? How do you really kind of pour that fuel and see this rocket kind of go up? Because fundamentally, everything we do from a customer acquisition standpoint is building some sort of engine that can grow pretty rapidly. So what I would love to understand from you is the agency journey, right? So let's focus a little bit more on Iversoft. You joined when it was about 4 years old, and you were kind of doing all sorts of things pre-pandemic. Tell me about the point where you joined. What was it like? There were only 6 people, you said, around in the company.
Yeah.
And what happened? Like, walk me through that timeline. When did you join? What year was it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined, I think, at the beginning of 2017. And I actually joined to kind of head up a completely different company and project. But as part of coming on board for that company, said like, look, I don't know about the hardware thing that we're doing over here. If I'm coming on board, I also want to be a partner in Iversoft because I think there's something there that we can do more with, but we'll see. And so at the time, we were exclusively in mobile software development, exclusively project-based, and had done a ton of apps, but in the smaller space ecosystem. I think our average project size at the time was like 30 to 40,000. I think the largest project the company had done to date was just pushing up to about $100,000. And they were doing 150 to 200,000 a year in services revenue at the time. It was kind of the lay of the land, but had worked with some incredible brands and companies just through great connections that the original founders had. So they've done work with Audi and Toronto Star and Michael Bublé. I think we did the first Michael Bublé app ever on the App Store and all kinds of stuff, but never really built a brand around it. And so one of the first things we did was lean so much more into telling the story of what we built and how we built it and what the business outcomes were and what the impacts were. And at the time, it was still very much around kind of mobile education. A lot of people were kind of like, how big a market is mobile? Do we actually need to have a mobile website, a mobile app? What does that look like? And so through that process, through a lot of those conversations, we ended up getting an opportunity to bid on bigger projects. And what I've seen, at least, is like you go through almost the like earning your stripes thing of like you take on your first 6-figure project, and like once you ship that and you have a case study and you can build on that, then you get your second one, you get your third one, and then you go after $250,000 projects and $500,000, and like you kind of work your way up through that process. I'd love to say we have some magic shortcut, but we've literally, I think, worked our way progressively year over year up through the ranks into $5, $6, $7 million projects. And that's been the growth, but a lot of that has been a bit of a mentality shift from the leadership team of like, we are going to grow 30 to 50% year over year, every year. And that is kind of what we drive towards. Those are the metrics we chase. And we're going to do that not necessarily by taking on higher volume, but by taking on larger projects, more complex projects, and really bring interesting systems to it. That wasn't always the philosophy, though.
So the philosophy in the early days was just what? Volume and
do more. So the trap we fell into, and I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, is, and this is where we were pre-pandemic, was rather than go deep on anything, we were going to go wide. It was like, all right, we got a customer, and now let's do like 9 things for them. Let's do the mobile app, let's do the website, let's do the digital marketing, let's do the branding, let's do the digital strategy, let's do their ad buys. And so like we bought a game studio to get more interactive talent in-house. Then we did a social media marketing company and tried to become the kind of digital agency for everything. And that was kind of the state we were at heading into the pandemic. I think we were a team of 30, and we were really struggling to educate a sales organization and a funnel to keep all arms and all divisions of the company equally busy at all times. And that kind of almost dilution of offering that we went so broad became so challenging from a sales perspective to feed. Kind of go all into selling mobile development and get that funnel good, and then realize that 2/3 of the company is idle because we haven't sold enough marketing stuff right now, or we haven't sold enough web stuff, and now we've got web guys sitting idle, or a marketing team that doesn't have enough stuff. So then you shift gears and sell that for a little while. And
what shifted? Why did the pandemic make that change?
It's a good question. I think there was a lot of, I think a lot of your audience is in the marketing world, right? So early 2020, we saw Iversoft's marketing portfolio go from kind of a growing division of the company to zero pretty much overnight.
Wow.
Which was crazy because it was pushing towards like 100,000 a month, and it went down to like 15 in the span of like 30 days of companies just reacting to me like, we don't know what to do. And I mean, obviously we know like it came roaring back not long afterwards, but from a company perspective, we were kind of like, oh shit, we don't know how to deal with this. I don't know what to do. I don't have enough bandwidth to try and like solve this. Also transition the company from like a big headquarters in office to fully remote to what else do we need to be servicing? And so we kind of took a step back and said like, okay, this is crazy times. We don't really know what to do. Let's go back to what we know. Let's focus on the core thing that we do insanely well. Let's stop trying to market everything. Let's get really, really focused on like, we are really good and have a huge portfolio in mobile development. All in on that. We ended up carving the marketing division out of the company and let it run on its own agency. They're killing it ever since. And we got hyper-focused. We took the team, I think, from 30 down to 17 or 18 and just got really, really clear on like, we're going to do the mobile development work. We're going to help companies that are struggling to do mobile and succeed in mobile do that really well. And from there, because we got so clear on who we work for and what value we bring, it became a lot easier to sell. It became a lot easier to train salespeople, and kind of growth took off. The next huge pivot for us, and this is something I coach a lot of agency and service owners on, is about a year after that, we moved away from project-based billing to retainer. And that shift was the next big jump for us that took us from kind of a team of 25 to 30 to 50 very quickly, is getting onto a model that is more repeatable, more scalable for clients, better aligns goals on both sides, and really drove, like, honestly, just huge simplicity in how we operated and how we worked with clients.
And what was that shift like? So thinking about it from a retainer standpoint versus project standpoint, did you first have projects and then you would bolt on retainers afterwards? And then you said, you know what, we're not going to do projects. We're just going to increase our retainer prices. And you know, what happened there? Like, how was the packaging different? Because let's translate this to marketing services, right? It's similar. A lot of us will build funnels or we'll build out the marketing strategy, and the build is this, but then to do traffic and optimization, then we'll bolt on a retainer. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah. And I think even in marketing world, like campaign-based versus longer term retainer has a lot of overlap. And I'll say for us, it was a couple things. One, we took a very hard look back at our project-based work to audit the financials of, like, how profitable are they? How happy are the clients? What's working? What isn't working? And in all honesty, looking back at a couple of years of data, said like about half of our project-based work is not profitable. The other half is profitable, but is only profitable with change requests, or we kind of massively overscoped something and it was stupidly profitable. And it was just this very unreliable balance. And we also looked at the interactions between our projects team. At the time, our project managers were reporting weekly on the profitability of each project and where we were tracking in terms of hours, budget, all of that. And they were kind of the front lines with our clients of making sure we were profitable and protecting our bottom line, while also simultaneously trying to drive value for our clients. And ultimately, that kind of puts you at odds with your client of like, you want to drive value, but you also need to make as much money as possible. So you're going to try and make decisions that improve profitability, sometimes to the detriment of the quality of the product. Or if you're always making quality decisions, you run unprofitably and have huge issues. So there was always this friction. And so we realized that our most successful clients and accounts were kind of running on retainer anyway. We were just doing multiple project scopes that kind of ran into each other, but burning a ton of time constantly rescoping things or setting up new campaigns, new teams, new background. And you're losing potentially consistency on people, consistency on knowledge transfer. And so we started talking to a couple of our clients and said, like, look, what if instead of doing the scope of work, we put a consistent team in place for 6 or 12 months. We have a general idea of what we need to get done and what the goals are. We know the timelines. And we'll report to you weekly, bi-weekly, what the sprint cadence looks like, how much we're getting done, whether we're on track for the timelines. But when things change in your world, when new requirements come up, we don't need new change requests. We don't need to deviate everything. We can just integrate it in the sprint and show what the impact is on the timeline. Instead of this kind of obscure fixed bid type approach, I'll get really transparent on the financials. I'll show you the cost of your team, from like salary to overhead, and we'll put 20% on that and we'll run transparently. I think within the span of like 4 months, we moved all of our accounts over to that model, and cadence and speed for shipping stuff went up, client satisfaction went up, profitability and predictability on our side went up. And I kind of had this moment of like, why have we not been doing this longer? And it's super interesting because it's a common conversation I have now where a lot of clients want project-based pricing. They come in and say, I want a number. Other times you can have a conversation like, look, the entire process of generating a number that makes sense for us, it makes sense for you, we have to ingest as much information as we possibly can up front. We then have to, as accurately as possible, estimate the timeline. Then I have to add buffer. Then I have to add contingency. Then I have to add profit margin. And we have to commit to all of that and hedge that every dollar of that buffer room, our team is now going to protect with their lives as we go through this, because that's the way we make money.
Right.
Does this actually make sense as a partnership for building something as complex as the systems we're getting into. And also keep in mind, at this time, our minimum project size had moved up to about 100,000. Our average projects were $300,000 to $500,000. These weren't simple presentational websites. These were fairly meaningful infrastructure pieces and healthcare projects and entertainment projects. And those conversations became a lot easier when it's like, look, we're all going to be aligned. We win based on renewals and long-term engagement. You win because I don't have an entire team trying to protect profit margin and move as fast and cheap as possible. If you want people moving fast, we can get people moving fast, but they're still going to make the right long-term decisions for you. And I feel like there's a lot of overlap that I've seen, honestly, with marketing teams we brought on both in our own company and portfolio companies I'm involved in. When it's like, I want a team that over the course of a year knows us, knows our customers, gets better and better and better, and is going to make strategically better decisions for us on an ongoing basis. So yeah, for me, retainer was the thing that changed the growth for us. Huge.
Yeah, this isn't building a house, right? It's not a one-time, hey, great, we've built your app, we're not touching it ever again. It's like marketing. It's not like, oh yeah, we've set up your Facebook ads. Good luck.
They're good forever. Just keep renewing the credit card. Like,
it doesn't really work. So it seems like those were your two kind of big tipping points. The project retainer switch and just focusing all in on retainer. And then second, being much more around just doubling down on one core thing while continuously leveling up the types of customers that you go through. I want to ask you, you've clearly gone through an incredible journey. I want to ask you about a couple of the challenges that you've had, like just you as CEO, as the business owner, as the person who the early days, because, some people may be listening and they're like, okay, I don't know how to get a $6 million project. This doesn't make much sense to me or isn't very relatable. And you went from 6 to now 50. And it takes a specific mindset, right? Because a lot of times people get stuck in this outsource freelancer. I have a small team and they're playing the balance of when should I invest and grow versus when should I profit, etc. Talk to me about the journey quickly around the CEO and you being that CEO, and also some of the challenges, like some of the mindset challenges you've had to overcome over those years.
I love this question so much. A couple things I would touch on there. So from a mindset perspective, I am a huge believer in pay for expertise, pay for access to knowledge, pay for the right community people. I've worked with coaches pretty much my entire career. I work with peer groups. I create community where I can. And I think if you're on that growth path, find a way to get access to people 2 or 3 steps ahead of you. Not more than that, but like 2 or 3, and learn from them. I see too many people surround themselves with people at the exact same stage, which is fine, but all of you are running into the same brick wall at the same time. You need to be getting access to somebody who's kind of built it and on to the next thing, because they can help pull you forward and accelerate that learning. Huge. And re-audit that every time you get to a new point. Like I had great mentors and coaches around me for getting to our first kind of million, and then a different group that helped us get to 2.5, and then 2.5 to 5, and then 5 to 10, and then engaged a whole new world of people. And I was like, all right, the hell do I do after 10? How do you get from 10 to 25 or 50? Constantly be leveling up your mindset and constantly be curating your social network, your friend network, your community to people that are pushing you and helping you get to the next level. The other mindset for a CEO that I think is huge, and I'm going to steal a frame reference that Dan Martell talks about a lot that I absolutely love, is if you are serious about scaling your company or your agency, you need to adapt a frame of mind where instead of whatever service you're running right now, you have just purchased and are now the proud owner of a Michelin star sushi restaurant. Let's assume, for purposes of this example, you do not have the skill set to take over the roles in the company. So if your chef quits, if your sous chef quits, if somebody else quits, you are not just rolling up your sleeves and solving it. You must recruit the talent. You must find the people, existing processes in the company to get things fulfilled. I see way too many people, especially in the services world, create companies where they are the only person that can deliver the thing, and the entire business operates and scales with them. And they don't focus on creating a service or an offering that can be delivered by a team. They have their kind of zone of genius, and they've built the entire brand around them doing the thing. You will never meaningfully scale if that is your model. And you have to break out of it. You have to simplify your offer. You have to simplify how you do what you do and get it trained. And when something needs to be done in the company, your default needs to be, how do I get someone else that can do this cheaper than I can, versus just diving in yourself. Dive in yourself. You just perpetually get stuck in the weeds, and you're never actually working on growing the business. So I think, to me, that's a huge frame. And I actually I have benefited from the fact that I cannot do 99% of the work that Iversoft does. There is no world where we're short on someone and I can just jump in and be useful. The thing I have to do, if we're short on people, we're short on money, we're short on whatever, I need to go sell more shit and help arm our team to do that. And as we've scaled, find good people who can recruit better than I can, find good ops people who can run operations better than I can, find better devs at every level that are just better, smarter, faster than each tier, and like perpetually do that over and over and over again. And as much as possible, lean into and live in the sales world and the kind of upper level view of where the company is going, and making sure that we're aligned in the market. Yeah, those would be big ones.
So what's your rebuttal for people who give you the money challenge? Well, how do I recruit good people if, my profits aren't there or my margins aren't there? And where's, you must have gone through some interesting challenges of, do you invest ahead of time and burn and grow, especially kind of, in the VC world, right? Like raising capital, it puts you in a mindset of, well, I've got all this money and now it's time to burn capital. I was speaking to one of my mentors and advisors, and he's an investor in Funnelytics, and he was talking about how one of his portfolio companies is burning $500,000 right now a month, right? And not a year, just every month, $500,000. And that's well and good if you got $15 million in the bank account and you can burn $500,000 for a long time. But even that is not that long. But you guys probably went a different route. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think to me, that conversation always comes back to, what is your goal with the company, right? If your goal is to scale, then you need to be selling things at a margin that allows you to pay other people to do it and maintain a gross margin of, 60 to 80%, that will create the room for you to be able to reinvest and grow. If you can't afford $200,000 rock stars, that's okay. Start by hiring people that can take the $20, $30, $40 an hour tasks off your plate and focus on the sales, focus on the growth. And if you can't afford $20 an hour people to take stuff off your business, you don't have a real business. And you need to be charging more, and you need to figure out how you create more value for your clients.
Totally.
And I think that's a trap a lot of people fall into, is like they make some money, but not enough money. And they're selling to potentially customers that are easier to sell to because they're at a really low price point. They've literally just kind of created a moderately paying job for themselves that they can't afford to outsource, they can't afford to level up in, and they're stuck. So I'd say take a cold hard look at your business financials, create a model where you can drive 80, 90% of the value with somebody else that you can have do the fulfillment. If need be, add your 10, 20% on after the fact, and focus your time on growing the sales, growing the margins. Like a lot of the founders, a lot of the scale up companies I work with, people are incredibly industrious at creating reasons and excuses to not go sell.
Totally.
And they will tweak product, they will tweak landing pages, they will write copy over and over again. 9 times out of 10, it's stop fucking around, call customers. Give me your calendar. If you tell me revenue is a problem and you're not spending 6 hours a day selling, you don't actually care about solving that problem. You're avoiding that problem, and revenue is a problem, but you're coming up with 100 other things that you need to tweak. It's crazy to me because you have a sales problem in your agency, go to events, start calling people, start reaching out, find other agencies that need your services. One of the biggest sources of deal flow for Iversoft is we reach out to design and brand agencies all across North America every week. Why? Because most of them don't have a ton of engineering talent in-house, and I can call 1,000 end customers, or I can talk to 100 agencies and say, hey, who's got mobile work coming up that needs a partner? So like, there's so many ways you can go find customers or find who's already working with your customers. But most people avoid it. Sales is uncomfortable.
It can be. Most people prefer working on their product or on the delivery side or whatever it may be.
One more feature and I can start selling.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. Hey, man, I've been guilty of it. I think we've all at some stage been guilty of it. I was going to ask you your best growth tactic as kind of the final point, but you kind of put a few here. Simple one is just sell, like go and sell. One that's interesting is just kind of these partnerships, right? These kind of like parallel type of partnerships where they have the same audience as you. However, they don't deliver anything near what you deliver. Is that one of the big reasons you guys grew at Iversoft? Is that one of the big tactics?
Absolutely. Like I'm a huge believer in every business I've ever been involved in and everyone I invest in is rather than brute force trying to find all of your end customers yourself, but spend some time thinking about who has already done the legwork, who has already found your customers, who already services them, and how do you meet as many of the people that own those companies as possible? And how do you find a way that you can add value? Like my goal for scaling Iversoft to the next level is like we pay out a referral fee to agencies that bring us in on projects. I want to see that become $1 million line item every year. That we're paying out $1 million to affiliate agencies that are helping us grow, because that's the best possible commission sales revenue we could be paying out. And it's applicable in literally every industry. I was chatting with a service business a couple of weeks ago, and they're looking at doing like in-home chef prepared meals, and they're trying to figure out how to go direct to customer. It's like, well, have you talked to who does luxury high-end home cleaning in the city? Who does these services? And have you talked to them? I haven't yet. Why? It's like, well, because they literally are already in the houses of all the people you probably want to sell to. I'm sure they would love to have an upsell offer or would have a good idea of who you could be talking to. Start there, because you can have one conversation and they've already got 1,000 of your customers, or you can go knocking 1,000 doors.
Man, that's a very, very great point. I think this is a perfect kind of way to end, because that's something that people gloss over way too much. Graeme, thank you so much for sharing all these insights. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, check me out at graemebarlow.com, Graeme Barlow on any social media, or iversoft.ca.
And we'll drop all of those links as well in the show notes. And thank you everyone for listening. And thanks again, Graeme, for being part of this.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.